Hey, my name is Baker Ferguson, and I'm a blacksmith based in Zionville, North Carolina. I make all kinds of tools, axes, hammers, pry bars, kind of whatever you name it, whatever I'm really intrigued at or about at the time. But I make a lot of knives. I've got a few knives here. I just want to go over the anatomy of a knife and the ways I like to make a knife and what I like out of a knife. So right here, we'll start with this is what I would consider a nice, skinning, hunting, all-around blade. You can see this one. So this is curly maple on the handle. Kind of dyed it kind of dark with some stain. And this steel is from a coil spring. So you think of the coil, like the shocks on your vehicle. Modern shocks and postmodern shocks, I guess pre-21st century, are all very high carbon steel. And when we're talking about high carbon, we're meaning the molecules in the steel are big and long enough so that they can be hardened. In order to make a knife, you must harden it. But not only that, you must temper it as well. You have to make it soft enough that it'll hold an edge and soft enough that it's not brittle and it won't break, but also hard enough that it'll bend still and be able to retain its shape and be a tool you can use forever. So this knife is out of a coil spring. You can see you've got a guard here for your hand. It's integral to the blade. It's been forged into the blade, so you're not going to slide up and cut yourself. It also gives you a really nice starting point when you're resharpening your knife. You know where to start your edge. You start here at your guard. This knife, and all of my knives, unless specially requested, come with what's called a Kydex sheath. And we'll get into that later on in the process, but Kydex is a type of thermoplastic. It's a bit above my pay grade, but I believe that's the term. But Kydex is a type of plastic that you heat mold into the shape of what you want, and it gives a really nice retention. You see you have the shape of the knife in the Kydex. It snaps, so you have a really nice, really tight, but it comes out fairly easily. And this knife in particular has a clip on it. It's a proprietary clip that I purchased. I did not make these. And honestly, the brand of it is not in my brain at the moment. But this clip is set up to carry horizontally right now. So this is called scout carry. So you would carry it either this way on your back left hip, or you would flip it around and carry it on your front or right. Or this clip can also be turned 180 and you carry it up traditionally. And it's all based on how you want to carry it. The scout carry has become more prevalent here recently, as in people want to be able to carry a blade and not inhibit when they sit down or when they're in their truck, or they simply want to tuck a t-shirt over it and still have a fixed blade on them. So that is this blade. Another type of blade I like to do, this is a similar style. Again, the exact same sheath, same setup, but this one's actually configured to carry this way. This is a similar type blade. This is a blade I make a lot. I guess you would consider this more of an everyday working knife. It'd also be great for skinning an animal, great for gutting a fish, great for general camping needs, chopping up kindling, cutting twine for tent stakes, all that kind of good stuff. It's all great for that, but it's made out of a different type of steel. This is made out of a farrier's rasp. So you can see it's got the pattern on it. And a farrier's rasp is used almost like a file is, but a farrier's rasp is long and it's wide. It has two sides on it. It's got a really coarse side and then it's got a fine side. And a farrier is someone who shoes horses. I am someone who collects farrier's rasps because they make really great tools. I make tomahawks out of them. I forge weld them together to make a really nice tomahawk, and I make a lot of knives out of them. One, you get a really cool pattern in your steel. Two, you're getting a really great steel. Typically, farrier's rasps are 1095 steel. So that is a really high carbon steel, but it's also really easy to heat treat, really easy to keep sharp, and really easy to resharpen down the line once you dull that thing, because you know you're going to with your camping and digging it in rocks and whatever people do. But this knife is made from a farrier's rasp. Very simple knife. It has a small handle with a thumb groove on the top. So cutting is really nice. Pairing would be really nice with this in a camp setting. This would also just be a really great everyday Amazon box opener. And that's kind of the style. I carry a knife similar to this every day in this exact same configuration. You're still getting a full-size grip. I've got big hands, but yet I'm getting a full grip on this knife and the blade's not this long, so I'm not having to worry about if I'm in a car, or like, oh, I'm in Walmart, people think I'm that guy carrying a huge knife, because you're not. This knife could even, you can take an ulti-clip, which I sell those as well, and it's just a small pocket clip, like a pocket knife. You would see a modern pocket knife, and you would have your sheath, and this would just clip right in your pocket. You're good to go. This is another one. Curly maple handle, really pretty scales, again, darkened. I like to darken this curly maple because our hands are so oily, and especially if you're working, your hands are dirty, you're gonna darken this naturally anyways, so that's what I did. Here's another knife, and this is a little different. So it's the same Kydex thermoplastic sheath, but this one is simply just for scout carry. So you're carrying it horizontal, and this is a pretty small blade, so it's not a big deal. If you wanted this blade and you wanted one of these larger clips that was 360 degrees, or you wanted a pocket clip, definitely can be done. I leave a bunch of different holes in the Kydex. You can mount these however you want. I just did this one because I kind of like the gray on black. So this one's also a Farrier's Rasp. You can see my F kind of in there. And this handle is Jatoba. So this is I don't know what country Jatoba comes from, but I buy it from a hardwood supplier, and I really like the red hue you get from Jatoba. Now, when I treat my handles and I stain them, sometimes I'll leave them natural. So this is the natural color of this wood. All this has on it is a protective coat of linseed oil, which one, it'll swell the wood a little bit, it'll strengthen it, it'll keep it moisturized. And two, it'll kind of give it a little sheen, just a little bit. And then I put butcher's block oil on them, soak it in butcher's block oil. And I do that even with knives I stain. What the butcher's block oil does is it seeps down in the pores of the wood, the natural fibers, and it almost makes it slightly waterproof. Because you know, if you got something really, really smooth, some kind of wood, and you get it wet, it feels kind of rough. The butcher block oil helps with that, and what it also does is it helps that if this knife were to get wet and then it dries out, it's not going to expand with the wood and then shrink with the wood when it dries out. The butcher's block oil protects from that. And I like to put a layer of wax on all my blades, because I like to get them kind of shiny here on this edge. Put a little layer of wax. Beeswax is great. I've got kind of a mix of beeswax and linseed oil. It smells really good. And that really will protect your knife from rusting, because this is a high carbon steel knife. This is not a stainless steel knife. Like most kitchen knives are stainless steel. So the stainless steel knives will not rust. High carbon steel will definitely rust all the time, and you will notice it quick. So if you are someone who's carrying a high carbon steel knife, get you some WD-40, get you some wax, keep that thing clean, keep it looking right. But yeah, this is another example of just a small camping knife, something you carry every day, fits in my hand good, got a good riser for my thumb for paring, whittling, cutting open Amazon boxes, doing a little bit of this. If you got to do a little bit of this, it's not really what this is made for, but it would do it. But yeah, this is a really nice knife. Fits good in the hand. Blade's not too long, blade's not too short. Got a full tang handle. I meant to say that all my handles are full tang. So from here to here, this is one integral piece of steel. So it gives you a lot of strength in the blade. And basically, so this handle is bonded to this metal. And it's not the metal's bonded to the wood. So this is simply for texture on your hand. Feels good, looks good. It's a good, pretty little skinner knife. Again, Kydex sheath. Really pretty cool. Comes out nice. And so that's anatomy of a knife 101. Anatomy of at least the knife I'm selling. And I guess in that I should say, as we go further on in the forging process, the things I'm referring to, I'm going to refer to the blade, the whole general area, the bevel. So the bevel is where the knife tapers from this original thickness down to nothing, down to your edge, and then the tang. The tang will be the handle. And this would kind of be called a ricasso or a bolster. This is, I call it a guard. It's a simple way to call it. We got an integral thumb guard right here. A great place to start your sharpening right there. And yeah, let's make some knives. We're gonna start with some steel, break it down, and then see where it gets us. So we've got our steel. Let me give you an example of what the coil spring is if you're not getting that. So here's a cutoff of a coil spring I've been using for a while. I use this a lot, plus the Rasp, plus I buy steel at times. Lawnmower blades are super awesome. Files are awesome. We don't have any big farrier's rasp in the shop, so we're going to use a small one today. You can kind of see it's an old farrier's rasp. I'm just going to cut off a section of it. I'll probably cut off a section kind of where this twine is, and that's going to give me enough room to move down for my handle, because I'm going to lose a lot of material in here, as in like the width is going to go down, but I'm not actually going to lose the material. So as I hammer this down this way, it's going to draw out this way and start to form my handle, my tang. And then from there, we're going to start forming our blade. So the first thing I do is I just put this in my post vise, and I'm just going to cut it off. And I'm super high tech. I just cut it off with an angle grinder. So we'll start there. So this is the steel we're going to work with. Be a good little piece. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and heat my forge up, heat this guy up, throw it in a pair of tongs, and you'll get to see that. Okay, so what y'all just saw me do is I heated up that farrier's rasp, just 2 heats. I basically put the side that I wanted to be the tang on the face of the anvil, on the top of the anvil, and I let the blade side sit off, and I started to draw that out. And as I hit it, it started to grow longer and thinner, but as you can see, I keep flipping it over and having to hit it this way. It's because as I do that, it starts to want to cup just a little bit. So I flatten it out, draw it back down, flatten it out, draw it back down. And towards the end of both heats, you saw me take it to the horn of the anvil, which is a radius. It's a half circle on top, full circle. And what that's starting to do is it's giving me that finger guard, starting to create that finger guard like I showed you on the other knives that had the radius for the handle, where you have the thumb guard. And that's how I start that process. And so I go ahead and draw out my handle to a decent shape, not full size, not huge, but fits in my hand just by my eyes, seeing it. Start drawing the handle out to that. And then next we will start forming the bevel of the blade. So we'll start forging in from the top, the spine, down to the cutting edge, taking that diameter from thick to really narrow and keeping it thick on the top. And we'll start bringing that diameter down and start forging our bevel. And what's going to happen as we do that is that knife's going to start to naturally curve. As you form that bevel, the steel is going to start to bend backwards. That's a good thing, it's a bad thing, depending on how you look at it, depending on the shape of the knife we want. I have yet to cut or forge in the drop point of the blade, the top of the blade yet. So we'll start with the bevel. I may hot cut it, I may cut it with an angle grinder, or I may start with just the belt grinder. We'll just see where we get, but for now we're going to start with that bevel. And then from there we'll let the knife cool, and then we'll go to the grinder, start doing some rough grinding, and then we'll probably come back to the forge, reform our handle some more, put our holes in for the pins, and then heat, treat, and temper, and then we'll put a handle on it. But that's the first bit of the forging process that you got to see. Okay, so I just recorded one heat of me forging in the bevel. I meant to record two, but I only did one. Anyways, so I forged in a pretty good bevel from about halfway down the center of the whole blade down. Tapers down pretty well. I did not forge in a point, and I did not cut a point. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to let that cool. I'm going to do something else in the meantime because it's really nice outside. It's been raining for like ever. I feel like we're in a rainforest. I guess technically we are in a rainforest, but anyways, I'm going to let that cool, and then we're going to go to the belt grinder. We're going to start forging in some bevels, kind of giving the blade some shape. It's probably at that point that I'm going to cut my point. I'm just going to use a grinder. We're already there at this point. I kind of got it too thin on the bevel to forge in a point without making a total mess. It can be done, but I'm not a professional bladesmith, and I don't always do that. So now we're just going to let that cool, and next point of the blade, or I guess next series or stage, stage. Next stage of the blade will be at the 2x72 belt grinder, kind of figuring that out, and you'll kind of get to see, and it really starts to look like a knife. A lot of sparks flying. Definitely gonna need headphones. All right, so blade's cooled off. You can see where we've come so far. Got a pretty good tang handle going. I'm gonna take it to this 2x72 belt grinder. This is a 36 grit belt. I went ahead and put my platen on there so I can kind of keep it straight. We'll start doing some rough forging and see where that gets us, and then we'll go back to, or rough grinding, sorry. See where that gets us, and then we'll go back to the forge. Okay, you can see pretty quickly I've got a blade. That's kind of the design I just went with. We're just doing this for this video, so why not? Pretty dope. Now we're gonna start putting some bevels in it. Just rough bevels, kind of finishing this handle out. The handle's a little short for the blade height, so I might actually pull this down just a little bit. Just kind of start refining this handle just a little bit, and you'll see that next. Okay, this is kind of where I'm at with my blade. Pretty happy with it. And now I'm gonna start refining my handle. Okay, so this knife turned out completely different than I thought it would. Pretty happy with that. You might have saw me dunking it in water the whole time. It's because this stuff gets insanely hot. And what's cool though is we're still gonna have the pattern of the rasp on both sides. But I'll do my best to get it off the tops and the bottoms of the spine of the knife and the tang. So that one, when I fit up my handle, that'll never be shown. It'll just be square steel. And two, the same thing. When you're looking down the blade, it'll just be square steel. Hey, so we're back here on day 2 of our knife build. This is kind of where we left off yesterday. All we got left is a little bit of grinding just to kind of get this spine back to straight. Maybe one last straightening in the vise, and then we'll heat treat this guy and temper it. What I did do off camera yesterday is I put my pins in, or my holes for my pins. I just hot punched them. But I'm gonna do another knife here that's not for this video, but I'll show you that step. And I'll also put my stamp in there. You can kind of see my stamp, it'll focus. So yeah, that's about where we're at. So the phase will, or the process will go, we will go ahead and hit this guy on the grinder a little bit. You don't need to see that. You've seen plenty of the 2x72. We will normalize this. So we'll heat it up to critical temperature, non-magnetic, maybe 2 or 3 times. And during that process, I'll also heat up my quenching oil. We're using Parks 50 and an ammo can for this. And this is probably a water hardening steel as well. But I have really good luck with quenching the steel in oil. And what quenching means is basically you're bringing the knife up to a critical temperature where all those steel molecules are flexible and movable, and then all of a sudden you're really quickly putting it in a liquid, a soluble liquid, and what that does is it hardens the knife really fast and changes the temperature really quickly. But the warm oil helps. I'm sure there's a reason why it helps. Everyone says it helps, and over the while doing knives, I've noticed it does make a difference. So yeah, after that, we'll temper this guy. I temper in front of my forge. I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of hate for tempering in front of the forge, but works pretty good. I've been doing it for a while. My knives stay sharp, they don't break, they bend, which is what you want. Yeah, we'll temper in front of the forge. We'll let it cool off. We'll temper to a certain color as the steel turn kind of straw, I think is the color I like, kind of strawish, bluish look. Temper it, we'll put a handle on it, let the handle glue. We'll start the handle tonight. The handle won't be done until tomorrow night, and we'll make a sheath for it. We'll be done. But yeah, so here's the knife as is. Pretty good sized blade. Fits really good in the hand. We'll have to blue it too. We'll do some finishing on it. But yeah, it's gonna look nice. Okay, so now you can kind of see the gray that the blade turned after it was heat treated. All I did was wipe this off with a rag, but I'm going to show you how a file skates across it. And this file cuts a little bit, but not like if it was softened. So I'm actually going to cut it just a little bit. We'll press into it. Okay, so now I got some bare steel, and now I'm going to temper it with a torch in the forge, and you'll get to see kind of what it looks like afterwards. Get to see some changing of some colors. But yeah, we'll go there next. Okay, so my knife has been quenched, you saw that, and then I tempered it with a torch and with the forge. File cuts pretty good on it now. Not too much, not too little. I didn't show those parts because they're kind of boring. But I went ahead and ground the knife down, at least the bevel and the edges, down to 120 grit. It was at 36 grit. So try to get a little of those grinding scratches out. And I went ahead and picked some handle material. When my wife and I bought this house, obviously the shop was on the property, and it came with a lot of oak, old stabilized oak. And you can't tell it now, but this oak is really, really, really pretty when you put a little shine on it. So I've got 2 mirror images of the handle scales made up here. They're pretty thick, but I like to kind of have them thick. You get a lot to work with when you go to the belt grinder. So I'll get the first side glued up, and then once it's glued up later this evening, I'll drill my pins in for the first side, the 3 holes for the pins, pins that kind of help hold the handle on. And then I'll go ahead and glue the other side of the scale on, and then tomorrow I'll be able to cut my pin, or glue my pins in, cut my pins off, get my final sand and shaping of my handle. It'll kind of look maybe a little bit like that, something sort of. And then we'll make a sheath for it and sharpen it, blue the edges, put some oil and wax on it, and it should be ready to go. Hey, we're back in the shop. Here's our knife build we've been working on the past couple days. So since we've been gone, I went ahead and glued up the other side, the other piece of our oak scale, and I went ahead and shaped this one kind of roughly on the 2x72 belt grinder. Still got a lot of meat left on there we got to get down, but I kind of wanted to see what the shape of the handle would look like. And yeah, so this is about where we're at. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to drill. So I've already drilled these 3 holes on this side with the drill press through the handle scales on this side. I'm going to drill them on this side, so I'll just drill all the way through to make sure they're perfect. We'll cut 3 pins and we'll glue them up, and then we'll let the pins dry for a couple hours, and we'll work on some other stuff. And then here in a little bit, we'll go ahead and cut our pins off, grind them down, get it looking clean. Sharpener, grinder a little more, polish it up, blue the steel some, polish our handle, maybe even make a sheath for it this evening. We'll see how far we get. But yeah, you can kind of see this is what our blade's turned into. It's covered in super glue. It's all dirty, but yeah, it looks good. Pretty happy with how it turned out. Excited to see kind of the rest of the build. Okay, so over here at the drill press, I'm gonna drill these 3 holes pretty quick. And like I said, glue up our pins. So what I do is I lock my drill press down so I know my first hole is gonna be perfect. Lock it in this vise, these things will spin. All this knife's not sharp, it's still pointing, that would hurt real bad. So I'm gonna do this very quickly. And I guess you have to share your failures too. So there's a drill bit stuck in the drill press. We'll see if I can, or in the knife. I'm gonna see if I can't get it out without breaking it in half. I've broken before, it's a pain, especially these skinny. Okay. I'm gonna figure this out and then we'll glue some pins, I promise. Okay, so here's our knife. I went ahead and took the liberties of giving it a shape, getting it cleaned up. This is grinded down to 400 grit. I'm gonna go up to 1,000 grit. Then I'll polish it on a buffer. But the handle is at 400, it's probably gonna stay there. And then we're gonna blue these edges here and on top of the spine. And then this will inadvertently always get some bluing on it, so we'll have to regrind this just a little bit down to 400, get all the scratches out, and then buff it. But it turned out really nice, really pretty. The oak looks really great. Only thing on that oak is just 1 coat of linseed oil. It's got some really cool checking on this side. Looks really nice. Fits good in the hand. So all that's left to do is we'll go ahead and make a sheath for it. We'll blue it, we'll sharpen it, clean it up, buff it, and it'll be ready to go. There it is. Ah. Okay, so now we're going to start making a sheath. I think we're just gonna do a black Kydex sheath for this. So we got a little bit of cut off out of Kydex, piece of Kydex here. We'll find our knife. And the way I do this is, there's no science behind this whatsoever. It's pretty redneck, but it works pretty good. So what I'll do is, we're gonna have to put rivets in this Kydex. As you see, got these little rivets. And that's what form the shape of the Kydex, the outside of it, as you see. Oh, by the way, it's covered in oil now, but pretty sweet looking blade. But we're gonna start making our sheath. So what I do is I'm gonna fold this sheath. Sometimes I do a 2-piece sheath, like here's a good example. So these are 2 pieces of Kydex. Just kind of, for me, it depends on the blade shape and what I'm feeling. But for this one, I'm gonna do a 1-piece. I'm gonna fold it like a wallet. So you can kind of see, I'm gonna go about right there, so I got enough room for the actual rivets to go in. So I'll kind of eyeball it right there. And I'm gonna take my razor blade. I'm gonna make just a little mark right here. Then I'm gonna flip it on that mark, kind of anti, and I'm gonna scoot it forward just a little bit. Then I'm gonna kind of mark my blade just roughly. I'm gonna flip it over, make sure I got enough room, which I do. And now I'm just gonna eyeball that mark. I'm gonna go just a little bit past it. I'm gonna cut a square line across this Kydex. And now I can just snap it off, throw that in the scrap pile. You can kind of eyeball rivets going that way, flip it over, got plenty of room. So next thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna heat this up and fold it over the knife and put it in our press. And that'll give us the first rough shape of the blade, and then we'll go to the drill press and drill our holes. So I'll go ahead and heat this up and show you how that goes. Okay, so we got it clamped down, all heated up. Give it a couple minutes, then we'll come back. Hey, so we're back. Ringing things everywhere. I went ahead and took some liberties and finished up the knife. Last thing I think you guys saw me do is I was pressing the Kydex. So started to press the Kydex. So what I did after that is I pressed it, went ahead and put these rivets in here. I just hammer them in. I've got a little die and a little set you set them with. Pretty simple if you do them right. Set the rivets, went ahead and made the belt loop. You can see there's a entryway for your belt back here. This is set up scout carry. It's also set up at a little bit of a cant, so it'll kind of ride on your belt like that. So it's canted up a little bit so you can get to it quick, but it's still carried scout carry. You can carry it on the front, the back, and this is set up to carry on your left side, but if you want to carry it on your right, you just pop these screws out. They're not Loctited in. Just spin this guy around, carry it on your right side. So the knife turned out pretty sweet. The sheath's pretty sweet. It snaps in really good. Hear that good click. It's not going anywhere, but yet, I mean, I can take this thing off one-handed, which is pretty cool. So the knife itself turned out very pretty. I went ahead and blued the steel, as you can see. And then I took a buffer. I put it on a benchtop buffer with some green Jeweler's Rouge. And now the bevel's ground down to 1,000 grit, but then I blued it afterwards and then sharpened it. But I hit it with the buffer just a little bit. You can kind of get a little bit of that steel peeking out, that raw steel. It's almost like a Hamon line with a Damascus blade. This is not Damascus, obviously. This is one integral piece of steel. And then the oak handle turned out really pretty. Oak's really tough, and this is kind of dark already. The more I grinded the knife, the more salt or metal dust gets in there, it kind of darkens it up. And then when I put linseed oil and wax on it, it really darkens it up. But I would imagine this will get a really great patina as it, almost like a piece of leather, like a leather wallet as it ages. It's dead sharp, really razor sharp. Got a good little place to start sharpening right there. You see that little half circle I put in there. Fits really good in the hand. It's pretty light. Obviously tapered blade, not a tapered tang, pretty thick tang. I like the thick tang. I do the tapered sometimes, but yeah, this turned out to be a really awesome knife and I'm pretty happy with it. Really good handle feel. Got that thumb groove right there. It's pretty sweet blade. Looks good with the gray on the black. I really like that combo. Yeah, and this turned out to be an awesome knife. We'll put it up for sale and see what happens. If you guys want a knife from me, hit me up on Instagram, Baker Ferguson, Ferguson. Ferguson.baker is my username. Or come find me. Come to my shop if you can find it. My shop used to be really public in town, but it's not now. I live way out in the country. But if you find me, you'll come out here and order a knife and make whatever you want. I just kind of do, when I'm making custom knives that I sell, I kind of do something that I'm interested in. I kind of let the blade, as it goes, determine what it's going to be. Like you saw with the beginning of this knife, I really had no idea what it was going to be, and then it turned out to be this really awesome utility knife, skinning knife, fighting knife, paring knife, camping knife, whatever you want. This is a really good one. It's got a great shape. It's kind of a multi-tool, I would say. It's not built for one thing, but it's built to last, it's built to work, and it's built to be sharp. If you get a knife from me and you dull it, whatever you do to it, bring it back to the shop, mail it to me, I'll sharpen it, I'll wax it up, I'll clean it up, get your handle looking right. I'll take care of it. That's what I want to do. It looked good. Thank you for following along. If you're curious about making knives, curious about blacksmithing, curious about anvils, curious about tools, I hope this video helps some. If you got anything else you're curious about, holler at me. And if you're thinking, man, I would like to start making stuff, how do I do it? I'll tell you how I did it. I just did it. YouTube is awesome. I learned a lot from YouTube. Befriend older guys that have been building stuff for a long time. Do whatever you can to make stuff because it'll make you feel good to make something you're proud of. And if you were to make this knife like me and you put it on your belt and you carry it, I'm gonna guarantee you there's gonna be about 50 people that say, a day, maybe not a day, it might be exaggeration. But they're gonna say, what is that? What are you carrying? Who made that? Blah, 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 blah. And you're like, hey, I made this. And then one day when you're at home in the evening and there's a cardboard box that shows up from a company called Amazon and you whip this thing out in front of your beautiful wife and you cut that box open, you're gonna feel like the man. Because you know what? You make something like this, you are the man. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day. Go enjoy this spring weather. The birds are chirping, the sun is shining. I cut grass today, I'm feeling good. Spring has reached the high country. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.